In this video, we're going to look at equations where the answers don't come out perfectly for all or some of the answers. So we will need the graphing calculator. First thing with this one, you will need to get it equal to 0 because it will be quadratic. So this will be 8 cosine squared x minus 2x, or sorry, 2 cosine x minus 1 equals 0. And one strategy that comes back that we did use in the identities unit is you can replace the cosine x squared with a variable. I'm going to choose to go with a and the cosine square. So cosine squared will be replaced with a squared, cosine will be replaced with a. And then you can do your factoring. And then whatever factoring method works for you. If you want to do your grouping, if that's the way you do it, or trial and error, this would factor into 4a and 2a, 1 and 1. And then we would want it to be plus 1 minus 1 here. And you can go back and put that in, whoops, not 8, 4, using the cosine. So 4 cosine x plus 1, 2 cosine x minus 1 equals 0. So you'll get two values you're going to be working with. Cosine x is negative 1/4, and cosine x is equal to 1/2. Now the cosine x is equal to 1/2 is fine. That one we can do without our calculator, but first I want to do the principal value. So for the 1/2, we're going to get a principal value of 60. Remember, cosine we're picking from the first or second quadrant, and this is in the first quadrant because it's positive. Now for the other one, since we do need to go to the calculator, the nice thing about principal values is you can type it directly into the calculator. Whatever the calculator gives you is your answer. So we're going to hit second cosine or inverse cosine of negative 1/4. And that gives us an answer of 1.82. At first, I just realized we should probably switch our calculator into degree mode. So if your calculator is already in degree mode, you would have gotten a different answer. So that's good. It reminded me that I need to do that. Switch into degree mode, go back to your blank screen, and then hit enter. And you'll want to keep your calculator in degree mode for the remainder of this unit. And then going back on a long-term assessment, you'll for an equation, definitely put it in degree mode for these situations. So 104.48 would be our answer. So those would be your principal value answers. And actually, that's whatever the calculator is going to give you there. Now for the 0 to 360 answers, a little bit different. So if I start with my cosine is equal to 1/2, I have one of my reference angles already. I have my quadrant 1 is going to be 60. Cosine is also positive in quadrant 4, so I can use the rule with the reference angle, which we already have as one of our answers, and do 360 minus 60 to get my angle in quadrant 4. So those are two of my answers. Now for cosine x equals negative 1/4, we want to come up with a reference angle. So if I were to plug this in the calculator, I'm going to do this differently. I'm going to take the inverse cosine of the positive of 1/4. And that gives me an answer of 75.22. So I'm going to put that in as my reference angle. And then I'm going to calculate my other angles because my angles are going to come from quadrants 2 and 3 by doing 180 minus the 75.22 and 180 plus the 75.22. So we'll get answers of the 104.48, which we already got previously. But if I was doing this as a new separate problem, I would want to have it done out this way, and then 255.52 would be my other answer. So altogether, my four answers are those two, plus the 60 and 300. And I would, if you have multiple answers, I would write them all together at the end. and list them all out. All right, our next equation is going to be very similar, but we will have to use the calculator a little bit. And this one we will end up also having to use quadratic formula. So our fifth example is 10 sine squared x minus 12 sine x equals 7. Again, get your equation equal to 0 first. Now you could always use quadratic formula if you wanted to. This one does not factor. You might try factoring first and realize it doesn't work. So just be careful because it's not x equals. It's really going to be sine x equals, and then do your quadratic formula. So negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. All over 2a. All right, and then that I would probably calculate, there's two ways you can go about this. I probably would do a little bit of simplifying so that I don't have to tape all of this in the calculator in one shot, although you can. So I'm going to put in and that gives me 424 for the inside, and then I can use that number when I'm doing my calculating. So we're going to calculate two answers, and I'm going to kind of go through it all in one shot for each. And you should have the ability to scroll back to grab answers later because you want to use the full exact answer. I just realized I started giving away the answer here before calculating it. Hold on that. All right, so we're going to get two values, the positive and the negative. So I'll put in, and you could even use the alpha y equals with this, 12 plus the square root of 424 over 20. Whoops. So that gives us 1.63 as our answer there. Now, if I try to do inverse sine of that answer, your options are to scroll back, grab the answer, and use it. If you don't have that ability, you can also do inverse sine and then you do second negative sign, which would give you the answer. So you could do that. Now this gives us an error message. This is outside of our range. So this one would not work. And the reason for that being the value is above 1. So if it's above 1 or below negative 1, it's not going to work. So I forget exactly what it was. This is no good. Outside the range of sine. So we don't get an answer for that. And we're going to do the other calculation, which will be 12 minus the square root of 424 divided by 20. And that gives us negative 0.423 or 429. I'm going to record that, but I'm actually going to use that answer. So I'm going to do my principal values first. So if I do inverse sine of that answer, whoops, I did it twice. Again, you can grab it or use the answer button. It's going to give me negative 25.44, and that's good because that's our principal values. I just forgot, what was it again? 25.44. Now the nice thing about the sine graph, or sine and tangent inverses, your reference angle is going to be the positive of that angle. And then sine is going to be, if we're doing 0 to 360, negative in quadrants 3 and quadrant 4. So I could do a couple trick things here. I can multiply by negative 1 to get that to be, I just put 11. Ugh. Okay, don't do that. But I can multiply by negative 1 to get rid of that negative sign. And then I can use that as my reference angle. So I can do 180 reference angle. So I can do 180 plus the 25.44. And actually, I wouldn't really even need the calculator for that, but. And then I could do 360 minus. Now for adding purposes, really I could do plus 180 right away. Again, I'm overdoing it with my button pushes here, so 205, then you could do 360 minus, but I don't really think you need to use the calculator for that first one. I'm just showing you that you can if you wanted to. And then if you had to scroll back up and get the answer, you can scroll up, grab the one that you're looking for, and make sure you continue to use those exact values. So 205.44 and 334.56. Just double check that 334.56. And those would be your only two answers there, because the other one did not end up working out. All right, so now you will be able to work on the practice. Make sure you do it when it's assigned. So if you're doing your notes for homework, then you're doing the practice in class the next day. If you're doing this during class, then you might be doing the practice right after.